Shalom family, Shamani Laya. Thank you for joining me in Unsectarian Wisdom, and as usual, I'm a wise, wealthy, rich, celestial being that is loved by the Most High Creator. Let's go ahead and jump in, family. We're getting into chapter 15 today of the Navigator who crossed the ice wall. I want to throw something out there real quick before I jump in, family. And you can either take this advice or you can leave it. You can call me crazy, but I know this to be true. I would explain how I know this truth, but to be honest, you wouldn't believe me no way, nor would you understand. But for those who understand and want to know the truth, and I've said this before, you could think I'm crazy if you want. Family, watch, mark my words. And when this happens, I hope you remember my page, and I hope you come back, and I hope you share it, and I hope you subscribe and be like, this dude told the truth. Family, only a matter of time. I can't tell you when, but aliens, look, we already seen on the news, and they was already talking about UFOs, right? And this has been out for months now. I think last year, the end of last year, they came out talking about there's actually UFOs out there, and and that we have video evidence of it. But family, they've been here the whole time. They're here right now, walking in front of us. And what's gonna happen is they're gonna sit here and say, the government, I'm telling you, they're gonna come out and say that either aliens are invading, or they're going to say they already been here the whole time and that they've been infiltrating the government, which is true. But you got to understand, well, honestly, when you have the true understanding, you understand that there are no aliens. But with these specific species, there's going to be two different species. But you got to use your discernment and your spirit to figure out which one is against you and which one is for you. Give you guys some more advice right now, family, because some stuff I've been seeing and understanding. When this happens, it is important, because you're going to start seeing things, look, and it's talking about it in this book. And I'm not even saying this because I've been reading it. I've known this before I read this. This book right here is only giving me confirmation on the things I've already known. And other stuff give me confirmation. But I'm telling you right now, family, when these things happen, like I said, you can call me crazy and I'm going to be finished. But when these things start showing up, if you ever seen the movie The Quiet Place, right? And there's other movies, but just specifically this. If you show fear, you're going to die. Just letting you know. When these things start showing up, if you show fear, if you run screaming and all that, you're going to die. You can't show fear, family. And it's a test. This is the Matrix. Ain't none of this real. They're not real. But if you show fear, you give them permission to destroy you. Do not show, I'm telling you, you can call me crazy, but I promise you, I give you my word, it's going to happen. And when this day happens, even matter of fact, family, once again, before I get into the book, and I'm about done, don't believe nothing I say, but study and make yourself approved. Line upon line, precept upon family, the Bible is a code book. The Bible is not this Christian book that you've been thinking it is. That's what they tell you. But if you actually take the time to study it, if you actually open your mind, there's some truths in that book. There's some codes, there's some messages in that book. I wouldn't know none of the things I know now if I hadn't first started in the Bible. If I hadn't first had an open mind. Family, I'm just letting y'all know. I'm letting y'all know. It's in the Bible. It says in the last days, even the elect will be fooled. I'm letting y'all know, family. I just want to say that. If you show fear, you're going to die. I'm being honest. I'm not playing with you. I promise you, if you show fear, you will die. I'm not sitting here saying everything in this book is true, family, but there's a lot of truth in here. But you have to connect the dots. You have to study. You have to go to the other places and find the information. Not just this book, not just the Bible, but the information everywhere. You have to connect the dots. No fear, family. Anyway, let's go ahead. Chapter 15, manipulation of the known lands. In all this time that has passed, I became more and more an arcane ancestral. I did not handle the language to perfection. Hold on, Mithra. In all this time that had passed, I became more and more an arcane ancestral. I did not handle the language to perfection, but I made myself understood. I was interested in science and technology. I tried to learn as much as I could from those minds, really advanced and specialized in the matter. I learned a lot about how our body works in as much detail as I could, the bacteria that lived in us, and what was different from a real disease to one created by laboratory. They were more surprised than me when the group made us different analysis to see everything we transported from our homeland. Oh, let me read that again. I learned a lot about how our body works in as much detail as I could, the bacteria that lived in us, and what was different from a real disease to one created by laboratory. They were more surprised than me when the group made us different analysis to see everything we transported from our homelands. There were so many bacteria and viruses that had been modified and created for different purposes by the custodians that it was difficult to count. In fact, it was known that their plan was still going on every year to continue creating new ones. They had people infiltrating the lands who passed information every so often. With Butler and the attack on They had people infiltrating the lands who passed information every so often. With Butler and the attack on Reborn, they stopped sending men for quite a while. And neither did the infiltrators come back to make sure they could not be discovered working there. The whole operation would fall apart, and we needed as much information from in there as possible. We had to be one step ahead of them, or else we would never have a chance to win. I was getting used to the fact that there was no social difference. We all lived relatively the same way, and no one lacked the basics to have a full life. The president of the Republic and the group of leaders, although they lived in a remote rural area by their own decision, did not have any luxury, nor did they receive a different salary from the rest. Anyone had a voice in politics, if you can call it that, since it differed significantly from the norm, and their ideas were listened to. There was no crime at all, and for obvious reasons, no penitentiary. Respect for the life of others was the main motto, and everyone voluntarily adapted to it. It was something natural that was breathed every day. Spirituality and introspection were fundamental and were taught from childhood. They were part of the education, first going through spiritual growth and then moving on to the rest. Family, this goes back to what I just said right now before I even started, the Bible. I'm not talking about joining religion. I'm not a Christian. I believe in the Bible. I believe in who. I'm not a Christian. I grew up in the church, but I'm not a Christian. I also believe in the Quran. I also believe in Buddhist texts. I also believe in this book. I also believe in a lot of other books I have in ancient writings. Respect for the life of others was the main motto, and everyone voluntarily adapted to it. It was something natural that was breathed every day. Spirituality and introspection were fundamental and were taught from childhood. They were part of the education, first going through spiritual growth and then moving on to the rest. They tried not to have an image of themselves, since the mind could deceive them, imagining that they were something or someone for others, when in reality they would be based on the subjectivity of others. Not having an image, let me read that again. They tried not to have an image of themselves, since the mind could deceive them, imagining that they were something or someone for others, when in reality they would be based on the subjectivity of others. Not having an image and not living from the past were pillars that I struggled to understand for years. Two fundamental pieces of a puzzle destined for such growth. They called it the death of the ego. Man, if this ain't real, family, come on now. I know this to be the truth. Come on, bro. From there, all you gotta do is listen to the wisdom, what they speaking right now. Come on, the ego, family. The ego is another word for Satan or the devil. We always be blaming the devil, and you don't realize, people don't even understand what the devil or Satan really is. That's a freaking, that's a title. There's a difference between Lucifer, devil, and Satan. They're not the same entities or same people. I could be the devil. I could be Satan. Because that's a title. Anybody can be devil or Satan. Not anybody can be Lucifer. That's a name. From there, they based any knowledge and learning. And once again, I don't believe in hell. I don't believe Lucifer is hell. You just got to understand what hell is. From there, they based any knowledge and learning that would come later. Never the other way around. Hold on, let me go back. My bad. Two fundamental pieces of a puzzle destined for such growth. They called it the death of the ego. From there, they based any knowledge and learning that would come later. Never the other way around. First to know oneself, and then to know the world around them. They taught me a lot about the great masters who had visited our earths and who were still remembered. The messages they tried to deliver based on what was written before. But all those messages had been distorted or intermingled with dirty business by the custodial sector. They would never let spiritual growth become present in each one. Besides mixing it with dirty money, they would also infiltrate several people who would confuse spiritual growth with religious themes to confront sectors or simply false prophets who predicted future chaos, aka, like I was just saying, modern day, the Christian church, people giving tithe to the church when the Bible says that the tithe is for the Levites. And when the church asks me for tithe, I say, hey bro, let me see your blood test. Because you sit here teach me about the Bible, but the Bible says that the tithe is for the Levites. And that the tithe is also for the sick, for the poor, for the widow, for the orphan. Not for this building that's costing like $10,000 in rent every month. Couple $1,000s a month in utilities. But you got people out here poor, living on the street, people starving. Got the pastor rolling around in a freaking BMW. Freaking $1,000 suits and stuff. Chains and... Anyway, let's keep going. That's exactly what this is saying. The few periods of growth that existed within the walls... Okay. The few periods of growth that existed within the walls of ice went hand in hand with moments of peace. Without great warlike conflicts. But sooner or later, some great war would come. Or attacks, plagues, pandemics. Always elaborated from some sector. Always from the same radicalized power. That would interrupt human progress with possible spiritual growth. And this was not going to stop. Sounds like today, always a war. Always somebody lying for a war. Politics was also implemented in conjunction with various societies that led in the control of these limits manufactured from the beginning, and that would be modified according to the many wars that existed until today. The so-called countries were just another form of control, where there were supposed leaders who ruled, but in reality were easily adapted to the same custodial power. This hierarchical form of control based on the paper money system would be key to absolute control in the development of this new humanity. Science would then enter its key role, where it would drag society to an extreme spiritual emptying, basing its life on mere material facts. People would then seek to increase their collection of colored paper and would turn away from love for their surroundings, even for themselves. Their image would be transformed and reduced forever into simple biological functions. What would then be the dream of a profoundly sick society? The real battle would then be found internally in each of the humans of the known lands, but their realities would be distorted, always imagining that the central problem is the others. Hate would win over love by the time humans would notice it would already be too late. The road to a great dictatorship would seem inevitable. The true feelings of love and spiritual growth as a whole would be less and less valued, and without this, we could do little from here. Since they would take us as bitter enemies and would join the custodians without knowing it to annihilate us, their military forces work together when only a minority knows it. The great positions, and not all of them. The system was in place, and only details were left for the human alone, without even knowing it, to walk the path that the custodial power had drawn in his destiny. Then the humans would only take care of this system. The lack of spiritual growth added to the real value given to the material and the system based on paper money was all that a society needed to fall into the vile plan and defend it to death. Oh, let me read that again. The system was in place and only details were left for the human alone. without even knowing it, to walk the path that the custodial power had drawn in his density. Then the humans would only take care of this system. The lack of spiritual growth added to the real value given to the material, and the system based on paper money was all that a society needed to fall into the vile plan and defend it to the death. Sounds just like the world today. All right, family, I'll catch you later. Be blessed. I enjoyed you. I hope you enjoyed me. Shalom.